In the shadow of Colorado's Rocky Mountains at Fort Carson, a quiet combat medic was about to reclaim everything the military had stripped away. What started as a routine training exercise took a deadly turn when a rogue paramilitary faction infiltrated the base and took 47 people hostage. Specialist Lena Ortiz wasn't your typical battlefield medic. For over a decade, she had spent her life mastering the art of precision shooting, known for ranking third among 200 candidates in the Army's elite advanced marksmanship program. When she encountered the Red Sabres holding civilians at gunpoint while the base's official snipers failed shot after shot, she had no idea she was walking into a moment that would define her entire career. Lena made a decision to step out of the shadows that would lead to the most spectacular display of marksmanship Fort Carson had ever witnessed. What began as treating minor training injuries would become a masterclass in tactical precision. The Colorado military installation would never be the same after the medic they dismissed proved that sometimes redemption comes at 720 meters through a rifle scope. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning Colorado sun cast long shadows across the Fort Carson medical station as specialist Lena Ortiz methodically restocked her trauma kit. The familiar weight of gauze and morphine syringes felt comfortable in her hands, though not quite natural. Nothing about her life for the past 3 years had felt natural. Ortiz? Private Jackson limped through the doorway, cradling his left wrist. Fresh dirt streaked his uniform, and his face was pinched with pain. Took a fall during rifle drills. Sergeant says you need to check it out before I can continue training. Lena gestured to the examination table, her practiced eye already assessing the injury. Slight swelling, limited range of motion, but the wrist wasn't misaligned. Let me see. Her touch was gentle but precise as she manipulated the joint. Sprained, not broken. I'll wrap it, but you're done with live fire for today. As she wound the elastic bandage around Jackson's wrist, muscle memory kicked in from a different life. Her fingers moved with the same unconscious precision she'd once used to adjust rifle slings and scope mounts. The similarity made her jaw tighten. "You know," Jackson said, wincing slightly, "Sergeant Hawthorne was just saying how medics don't really understand what it takes on the range. All that precision shooting stuff. I mean, no offense, but bandaging cuts is pretty different from putting rounds on target at 600 meters, right?" Lena's hands never paused in their work, but something cold settled in her chest. Through the open doorway, she could see the rifle range where Hawthorne's voice carried on the morning air, loud and confident as he corrected a trainee's stance. "There." Lena secured the bandage with practiced efficiency. "Ice it every 2 hours. Ibuprofen for the swelling. And Jackson?" She met his eyes directly. "The fundamentals are the same. Steady hands, controlled breathing, focus on your target, whether you're stopping bleeding or stopping a threat." After Jackson left, Lena found herself drawn to the window overlooking the range. Her eyes automatically tracked the wind patterns in the grass, calculated the ambient light conditions, noted how the morning heat would affect bullet trajectory by midday. 3 years of forced medical focus couldn't erase her decade of marksmanship training. Captain Darius Keene appeared in her peripheral vision, walking past the medical station with his typical brisk efficiency. Their eyes met briefly through the window glass. He nodded, polite, professional, dismissive. The same nod he'd given her the day she was reassigned, the day he'd stood silent while Major Wells buried her shooting career for the crime of being right about faulty equipment. Lena turned back to her inventory, but her mind drifted to that night 3 years ago. The late-night call to inspect hydraulic systems, her insistence on documenting every anomaly while Wells grew increasingly irritated. The formal report she'd filed, knowing it would make enemies. The crash that nearly killed 2 pilots, a crash her warnings could have prevented. Being right hadn't mattered. Wells had connections, she had principles. The sound of rifle fire echoed from the range, each crack sharp and familiar. Without conscious thought, Lena found herself timing the intervals between shots, analyzing the rhythm. Too rushed, The shooter was anticipating recoil instead of following through. Her fingers twitched, remembering the weight of her old SR-25, the silk-smooth bolt action of competition rifles, the perfect moment of stillness before the trigger break. She'd been third in her advanced marksmanship class, third out of 200 candidates. Now she wrapped sprains and dispensed aspirin. The helicopter rotors thundered overhead as the joint training exercise kicked into high gear. Lena watched from the medical station as transport birds settled onto the landing zone, kicking up dust clouds that obscured the international observers disembarking. Fort Carson hosted these exercises twice yearly, but this one felt different, larger, more politically charged.
"Big day," Private Ellie Tran commented, joining Lena at the window. The young medic's enthusiasm was infectious under normal circumstances, but today, Lena felt an odd tension in the air. Captain Keene says some real VIPs are watching this one. Pentagon brass, foreign military attachés. Could make careers. Or destroy them, Lena thought, remembering her own career's abrupt redirection. The exercise scenario was straightforward. A simulated terrorist infiltration of the munitions storage sector with base security responding to neutralize the threat and secure sensitive materiel. Live fire simulation rounds, helicopter insertion, full tactical response. Standard fare for Fort Carson's advanced training programs. Lena's radio crackled. Medical, stand by for exercise casualties. Scenario injuries only, but maintain full readiness protocols. Copy that. Lena clipped the radio back to her belt. You ready for this, Tran? Before Ellie could answer, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in red light. But something felt wrong. The power outage wasn't scheduled. Lena's training instincts, dormant for 3 years but never truly dead, started screaming warnings. Her radio crackled with confused chatter. Exercise control, we've lost power in sectors 7 through 12. Negative on scheduled blackout. Unknown personnel in the munitions area. Then Lieutenant Commander Sofia Ramirez's voice cut through the chaos, her words carefully modulated but unmistakably urgent. Base operations, this is Overwatch 6. We have multiple exercise observers requesting facility tours in restricted areas. Could use clarification on access protocols? Lena's blood chilled. Ramirez was using exercise speak, but her tone suggested this wasn't an exercise anymore. Exercise observers requesting facility tours in restricted areas during an unexplained power outage. The reality hit her like a physical blow. Someone had infiltrated the base under cover of the exercise. Captain Keene's voice boomed over the base-wide communication system. All personnel, exercise Red Crown is now suspended. This is not a drill. All units implement security protocol Bravo 7 immediately. Base is now under lockdown. Through the medical station window, Lena could see genuine chaos replacing the controlled simulation. Vehicles racing toward the munitions sector, personnel running with the urgent purpose that distinguished real crises from training. In the distance, muzzle flashes sparked, and they weren't simulation rounds. Holy shit, Ellie whispered. This is really happening. Lena was already moving, her hands automatically checking medical supplies with combat efficiency she hadn't used in years. Get the trauma kits ready, real ones, and prep the surgical station. We're about to have actual casualties. Sergeant Max Hawthorne's sniper team had taken position on the water tower overlooking the munitions complex within minutes of Keene's lockdown order. Through her binoculars, Lena could see them settling into their firing positions with practiced precision. Hawthorne had the training, the equipment, and the official authorization to end this crisis. But as minutes stretched into an hour, the situation only worsened. Medical, we need immediate extraction for wounded personnel, grid 847239, crackled over Lena's radio. She recognized the grid coordinates, dangerously close to the sniper positions. On our way, Lena replied, grabbing her aid bag. Tran, you're with me. They moved quickly across the compound, staying low and using buildings for cover. The acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air, mixed with something more ominous, the distinct odor of military-grade explosives being moved. When they reached the outer cordon, Lena found 2 of the Hawthorne team members behind a concrete barrier, one clutching a bleeding shoulder. The wounded marksman looked up as she approached, his face tight with pain and frustration. They're using the hostages as shields. Every time Hawk gets a shot lined up, they move someone in front of the target. He's missed 3 clear opportunities because civilians keep wandering into his line of fire. Lena worked quickly to treat his wound, but her mind was processing tactical information. As she bandaged, she found herself studying the munitions building through gaps in their cover. From this angle, she could see what the sniper team couldn't: movement patterns, blind spots, firing lanes that could provide clean shots without endangering hostages. "There," she murmured, almost to herself, tracking a figure moving between buildings. Northwest corner, 2nd floor. Clean backdrop, no civilian traffic. The wounded marksman followed her gaze. "You see him? Hawk's been trying to get that guy for 20 minutes. Keeps losing him in the shadows." Lena's trained eye caught details the others missed. The way morning shadows created perfect concealment for the target, while simultaneously providing clear sight lines from an elevated position. The angle was tricky, requiring compensation for both wind drift and the downward ballistics of a high-to-low shot. A shot she could make in her sleep. Her radio crackled with Ramirez's voice, still maintaining the careful language of Operation Security, but with increasing urgency. "Command, the tour group is expressing interest in the special exhibits. Request immediate guidance on display security." Translation: the hostage takers were moving toward the explosives. Ellie tugged at Lena's sleeve. "We should get him back to the aid station."
But Lena was watching Hawthorne through her binoculars. Even at distance, she could see the tension in his body language, the slight tremor in his rifle that indicated mounting pressure. He was a good marksman under controlled conditions, but this wasn't the range. This was chaos, politics, and lives hanging in the balance. As she watched, Hawthorne fired. The shot went wide, striking concrete 2 feet from his intended target. The radio exploded with chatter. "Miss, target's moving. They're hoarding the hostages toward the main building." Lena closed her eyes, her mind automatically calculating wind speed, distance, and trajectory. In her imagination, she could feel the familiar weight of a precision rifle, the perfect moment of stillness before the shot. But she was just the medic now. The radio crackled again with Ramirez's increasingly desperate updates. "Display security is now critical. Repeat, critical. Time was running out." "Medical, we have 2 more casualties at checkpoint Alpha 7, the radio squawked. "Need immediate extraction." Lena shouldered her aid bag, but this time she grabbed something else. Her personal binoculars, military-grade optics she'd kept from her sniper days. "Tran, stay with the wounded. I'll handle this extraction." The run to Alpha 7 took her directly through the tactical zone, closer to the action than any medic should venture. But as she moved between cover positions, dodging the occasional crack of rifle fire, Lena found herself automatically cataloging details that had nothing to do with medical care. Wind direction, northwest at 8 miles per hour. Visibility, excellent, morning haze burned off. Range to target building, approximately 520 meters. Elevation advantage from the water tower, roughly 30 feet, requiring a downward angle compensation of... She shook her head, forcing herself to focus on the wounded soldiers ahead. But the tactical analysis continued unbidden, a mental process she couldn't shut off any more than she could stop breathing. The wounded at Alpha 7 were minor, one concussion from falling debris, another with glass cuts from a shattered window. As Lena treated them, she positioned herself to observe the sniper team's positions. Through her binoculars, she watched Hawthorne adjust his scope, his movements efficient but rushed. "There's no shot," he heard him mutter over the tactical frequency. "Every time I get a bead on one of them, they shift position. It's like they know exactly where I'm looking." But from Lena's position, she could see what Hawthorne couldn't. The Red Sabres weren't randomly moving. They had a pattern. Every 47 seconds, the sentry in the northwest window moved from his concealed position to check the main entrance. For exactly 6 seconds, he stood exposed against a blank concrete wall with no civilians anywhere near the backdrop. 41, 42, 43, Lena counted under her breath, watching the pattern repeat. There! The sentry appeared right on schedule, perfectly silhouetted. Hawthorne's shot cracked across the compound a full second after the target had already moved back to cover. Damn it! Hawthorne's frustration carried clearly over the radio. Ellie appeared at Lena's shoulder, breathing hard from her sprint across the compound. "The command post wants to know our casualty count," she panted, then noticed Lena's intense focus on the distant building. "What are you doing?" "Watching," Lena replied, but her voice had changed. Gone was the careful medic's tone, replaced with something sharper, more predatory. She was tracking movement in the target building with the unconscious precision of a hunter following prey. Ellie studied her mentor's face, noting how Lena's eyes moved across the battlefield, how her breathing had settled into the controlled rhythm of someone preparing for action. "You're not just watching, are you? You're calculating." Before Lena could answer, Ramirez's voice cut through the radio chatter. "Command, the special exhibits are being prepared for immediate transport. Repeat, immediate transport. Request expedited resolution." The explosives were being moved. Time was almost up. Lena raised her binoculars again, this time focusing on a different angle entirely. From the communications tower, 30 degrees northeast of Hawthorne's position, she could see a clear firing lane through a gap between two storage containers, a lane that provided clean shots to 3 separate Red Sabres positions without any risk to hostages. A lane that Hawthorne couldn't see from his turret position and would never think to use. But it was a complex shot series, requiring rapid target transitions and precise timing, the kind of advanced marksmanship that only someone with her specific training could attempt, the kind of shots she'd been dreaming about for 3 years. Lena burst through the command post door with Ellie close behind, her medical bag still slung over her shoulder, but her entire demeanor transformed. The room fell silent as she approached Captain Keene's position at the tactical display. "Captain," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded respect before politics stripped it away. "I need authorization to take the shots." Keene looked up from his maps, his expression cycling through confusion, recognition, and immediate dismissal. "Specialist, return to your medical duties. We have qualified marksmen handling..."
Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Your qualified marksmen are failing." Lena's interruption was sharp, professional, but undeniably challenging. Sergeant Hawthorne has missed 7 opportunities in the last 30 minutes. The Red Sabres are moving explosives, and in approximately 15 minutes, those hostages are going to die. Hawthorne's voice crackled over the radio from his sniper position. "Command, I need a better angle. These bastards are like ghosts. Every shot I line up, they disappear." The room's attention focused on the tactical display, where red dots marked enemy positions. Lena stepped forward, pointing to specific locations. Northwest sentry, predictable movement pattern every 47 seconds. Southeast position has a blind spot from the communications tower angle. Main building sniper is using muzzle flash suppression, but his barrel shadow is visible against the white concrete at this time of day. She traced firing solutions across the display with the confidence of someone who had studied this battlefield for the past hour. "I can neutralize all 3 positions within 90 seconds. "You're a medic. When's the last time you even held a rifle?" Hawthorne's voice cut in. He'd been monitoring the command frequency. Lena reached into her cargo pocket and produced a laminated card. Her marksmanship certification, still valid, still bearing the qualification scores that had once placed her among the Army's elite shooters. "Last week. I maintained my qualifications on my own time, Sergeant. Do you?" The challenge hung in the air like gunpowder smoke. Keene examined the certification, his political mind clearly calculating risks and consequences. "Specialist, even if your skills are current, you were reassigned for being right about equipment failures that nearly killed 2 pilots. Major Wells buried my career because I made him look bad. You know it, I know it, and right now 47 people don't care about the politics." Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Vann chose that moment to enter the command post, his flight suit dust-covered and his expression grim. "Captain, I've got aerial reconnaissance showing Red Sabres reinforcements approaching from the northeast. We're looking at maybe 20 minutes before this goes from bad to impossible." His eyes found Lena across the room, and his expression shifted to something like recognition mixed with hope. "Ortiz,
Jesus, I heard you were here, but he looked between her and Keene. Sir, if she's volunteering for what I think she's volunteering for, I can provide overwatch and positioning. You'd trust her with your aircraft? Keene asked. Van's answer was immediate. He saved my life 3 years ago when my bird went down during a training accident, stopped my bleeding, kept me conscious, talked me through emergency procedures while hanging upside down in a crashed helicopter. He paused, studying Lena's face. If she says she can make the shots, I believe her. The room waited as Keene weighed his options. Through the window, they could all see smoke rising from the munitions complex, hear the distant crack of rifle fire, feel the weight of time running out. Hawthorne, Keene spoke into his radio, can you guarantee me a clean resolution in the next 10 minutes? The pause that followed spoke volumes. Sir, these are difficult conditions. I need more time to... That's what I thought. Keene looked directly at Lena. You get one chance, Specialist. Van provides overwatch, but if you miss, if civilians get hurt, if this goes sideways in any way, it won't. Lena's confidence was absolute. I'll need my personal rifle from storage locker 447, one spotter, and clear communication with Commander Ramirez inside the building. Ellie can spot for you. She knows the tactical frequencies. As the room mobilized around her, Lena felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years, the perfect clarity that came with being exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. The medic was gone. The sniper had returned. 20 minutes later, Lena lay prone on the communications tower platform 60 feet above the base, her custom SR-25 rifle feeling like an extension of her nervous system. Below, Van's helicopter hovered at the edge of audible range, ready to provide elevated angles if needed. Range to primary target, 523 meters, Ellie whispered into her headset, proving surprisingly adept at spotting despite her medical background. Wind is holding steady northwest at 7 miles per hour. Lena made micro-adjustments to her scope, muscle memory guiding her fingers through calculations she'd performed thousands of times. The rifle had been maintained meticulously during her 3-year exile, cleaned and zeroed during countless off-duty hours when she'd told herself she was just maintaining equipment, not nursing hope. Overwatch 6, this is Ghost 1. Lena spoke softly into a radio, using the call sign she'd earned years ago in advanced sniper school.
Ramirez's voice came back immediately. Ghost 1, Overwatch 6, we have been waiting for you. The simple acknowledgement carried weight beyond tactics. Ramirez had recognized her voice, knew who she was and what she'd once been capable of. More importantly, she was trusting Lena with the lives of 47 people. I need a count on hostile positions visible from your location, Lena requested. 3 confirmed shooters maintaining overwatch positions, northwest window, southeast corner, and main entrance sniper nest. They've been rotating shifts every 20 minutes, but the pattern just changed. Movement in the back rooms suggests they're preparing to relocate the packages. The packages. Military speak for explosives that could level the building. Understood. I'm going to neutralize the overwatch positions in sequence, then provide cover while you move the civilians to the reinforced storage areas. Timing is critical. Lena settled deeper into her shooting position, her breathing automatically falling into the rhythm that had once made her legendary among instructors. Inhale, exhale, pause, fire. The simple sequence that turned chaos into precision. Through her scope, the Northwest sentry appeared exactly as she'd predicted, standing in the window for his 6-second observation cycle. But this time, instead of rushing the shot like Hawthorne had been doing, Lena waited. Patience was the sniper's greatest weapon. On target, she whispered to Ellie. Northwest window. The rifle bucked against her shoulder with familiar authority. Through the scope, she watched the Red Sabres operative crumple, his weapon tumbling to the ground below. One down, no alarm raised. Clean hit, Ellie breathed, her voice mixing awe with professional appreciation. Before the other sentries could react to their missing colleague, Lena was already transitioning to the southeast position. This target required a more complex shot, ricocheting off a steel support beam to reach an operative positioned behind partial cover.
Angle shot, southeast, she murmured, calculating the geometry of metal and bone. Spot for splash. The second shot rang out, and Ellie watched through her own optics as the bullet sparked off steel and found its mark. Hit! Target down! 2 shots, 2 kills, and the Red Sabres still hadn't realized they were under precision fire. But the third position, the main entrance sniper nest, would be different. That shooter had cover, backup, and was now likely wondering why his teammates had stopped checking in. Ghost One. Ramirez's voice carried new urgency. They're moving faster now. Whatever spooked them, we're looking at maybe 5 minutes before they start making demands we can't meet. Van's helicopter swept closer, providing Lena with a different angle on the main building. Through her scope, she could see the entrance sniper's position, well protected, limited exposure, multiple escape routes. It would require the kind of shot that existed at the edge of possibility, the kind that separated competent marksmen from artists, the kind of shot she'd been preparing for her entire career. Van, I need you to provide distraction fire on the northeast corner, low and wide. Don't hit anything, just make noise, Lena commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone completely in control of a lethal situation. Copy that, Ghost One. Providing distraction in 3, 2, mark. The helicopter's door gun chattered, sending rounds sparking harmlessly off concrete barriers. As expected, the main entrance sniper shifted position to assess this new threat, exposing himself for precious seconds. But Lena wasn't taking the obvious shot. Instead, she was tracking a different target entirely. A Red Sabres operative who had emerged from the building's rear entrance, clearly trying to flank Van's helicopter. Her first shot took him down cleanly at 580 meters, a moving target requiring full compensation for both wind drift and the helicopter's rotor wash affecting bullet trajectory. The second shot came immediately after, angled through a gap between 2 concrete barriers to eliminate a spotter who had been calling positions to the main sniper. The third shot was pure artistry, a ricochet off the building's steel window frame that curved around cover to neutralize the main entrance position. 3 shots, 3 seconds, 3 kills. Jesus Christ, Hawthorne's voice came over the tactical frequency, his professional pride warring with undeniable admiration. Did anyone else see that? She just cleared 3 positions with shots I couldn't even attempt. From the command post, Keene's voice carried new respect. Outstanding work, Ghost One. Hostage building is secure for movement. But Lena was already tracking new movement through her scope. Negative on secure, Command. I have 4 additional hostiles exiting the rear of the building, heading toward the secondary storage area. They're carrying packages. The explosives team, making their escape with enough ordnance to complete their mission elsewhere. Van, I need elevation and angle on the storage area. Fast. The helicopter swung wide, giving Lena line of sight to the fleeing operatives. But this shot series would push every limit she possessed. Multiple moving targets at extended range with civilians potentially in the area, and Van's aircraft providing an unstable shooting platform. Range now 634 meters and increasing, wind shifting to northeast at 9 miles per hour.
Lena made rapid adjustments, her mind automatically calculating the complex ballistics of shooting from a moving platform at moving targets. It was the kind of scenario that existed only in advanced training simulations and nightmares. Her first shot dropped the lead operative, but the explosive case he'd been carrying tumbled toward a group of base personnel who had emerged from a nearby bunker. Her second shot, fired while Van maneuvered the helicopter through a sharp banking turn, intercepted the falling case and sent it spinning harmlessly into open ground. "Holy shit, she shot it out of the air!" Van's voice carried genuine disbelief. The remaining 3 operatives scattered, but Lena was already adjusting for their predicted movement patterns. Combat-trained soldiers fell back on muscle memory under stress, and she'd studied enough tactical movement to predict their likely routes. Third shot, clean kill at 680 meters as the target dove for cover behind a vehicle. Fourth shot, another moving target, this one trying to reach the tree line. The final operative, the smartest of the group, had gone to ground behind a concrete barrier and wasn't moving, but Lena could see something he couldn't. Ramirez, leading a group of freed hostages out of the main building, was directly in his potential line of fire. "Ellie, call wind again. Steady at northeast, 10 miles per hour." Lena took a deep breath, let half of it out, and found that perfect moment of stillness that exists between heartbeats. Through her scope, she could see the operative's rifle barrel extending just slightly past his concrete cover. 6 inches of metal, 720 meters away, with civilian lives hanging in the balance. She pressed the trigger. The bullet struck the rifle barrel dead center, sending the weapon spinning from the operative's hands and likely breaking several of his fingers in the process. He surrendered immediately, hands raised, no longer a threat. "All targets neutralized," Lena reported, her voice steady despite having just executed the most complex shooting sequence of her career. "Hostages are clear to move." In the command post, Keene stared at the tactical display showing 7 red dots that had turned dark in less than 3 minutes. "Outstanding doesn't begin to cover this," he murmured. But as Lena began to relax her shooting position, a new explosion rocked the munitions complex. Not the building they'd been watching, a different structure entirely, where smoke and flame now billowed into the Colorado sky. Through her scope, she could see movement in the smoke. More operatives, a backup team that had been waiting for exactly this moment of distraction. The mission wasn't over, it was just beginning. The explosion had changed everything. Through the billowing smoke and debris, Lena could see the tactical situation deteriorating rapidly. The backup Red Sabres team hadn't just been waiting, they'd been positioning charges in secondary buildings, creating multiple crisis points that would overwhelm any response. "Ghost 1, this is command." Keene's voice crackled through the radio, barely audible over the sound of sirens and secondary explosions. "We have reports of hostiles in Buildings 7 and 12. Aerial reconnaissance is compromised due to smoke cover." From her elevated position on the communications tower, Lena could see what others couldn't. The smoke wasn't random, it was being used to mask coordinated movement between buildings, creating corridors where the Red Sabres could operate without fear of sniper fire. Whoever was running their operation understood military tactics at the highest level. "Van, I need immediate extraction. This position is compromised. I need to get to ground level for close-range engagement." "Copy that. Coming in hot." As the helicopter swept toward the tower, Lena broke down her rifle with practice speed, securing it in its transport case while maintaining visual contact with hostile movements below. Ellie gathered their spotting equipment, her hands steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "Where are we going?" Ellie asked as they prepared for extraction. "Building 6 maintenance access. It'll give us angles on both crisis points while keeping us mobile." Lena checked her sidearm and grabbed additional magazines. This isn't sniper work anymore. It's close-quarters battle with precision shots mixed in. Van's helicopter touched down for exactly 12 seconds, just long enough for Lena and Ellie to jump on board before lifting off again. Through the aircraft's windows, Lena could see the base she'd called home for 3 years transforming into a war zone. Smoke rose from multiple points, emergency vehicles raced between buildings, and personnel moved with the urgent efficiency of people whose lives depended on speed. "Setting you down behind Building 6. Be advised I'm tracking movement in the tree line northeast of your position. Could be more hostiles inbound." The helicopter flared to a landing behind a concrete barrier, and Lena was already moving before the skids touched ground. But the distinctive crack of high-velocity rounds snapped overhead. Someone was shooting at them with professional precision. "Contact rear," Ellie shouted, diving for cover behind a maintenance shed. Lena found herself pinned behind a concrete barrier, unable to reach the elevated position she'd planned to use. The Red Sabres had anticipated her movement, positioned a marksman to cover exactly this approach. Through gaps in her cover, she could see muzzle flashes from a second-story window 200 meters away.
"They knew we were coming," she realized grimly. "Someone's been monitoring our communications." The tactical situation was worse than anyone had anticipated. Not only were the Red Sabres equipped and trained like military professionals, they had intelligence capabilities that suggested this wasn't just an opportunistic raid. This was a carefully planned operation with multiple contingencies. "Ellie, can you reach the maintenance entrance?" Lena called over the sound of incoming rounds. "Negative. There's too much open ground and that sniper has perfect coverage." Lena assessed their options. The elevated sniper position was gone. Their planned route was compromised. Multiple buildings were now showing signs of hostile activity, and somewhere in this chaos, the original hostages were still at risk, while new threats multiplied by the minute. But as she studied the battlefield, her tactical mind began finding opportunities in the disaster. The smoke that obscured aerial surveillance could also mask her movement. The debris from the explosions created new firing positions, and the Red Sabres' confidence in their sniper overwatch meant they might not be watching for ground-level infiltration. "Change of plans," she announced, pulling her rifle from its case and checking the action. "We're going hunting." Moving from cover to cover, using smoke and debris as concealment, Lena began working her way toward Building 7. Each movement was calculated, timed to the rhythm of the enemy sniper's fire pattern. When he shot, she moved. When he paused to acquire new targets, she froze. Ellie followed her lead, proving surprisingly adept at tactical movement for someone whose training focused on medical care. Together, they covered nearly 100 meters of open ground without drawing fire, reaching the base of Building 7 just as new explosions rocked the structure above them. "They're bringing the building down," Ellie whispered, looking up at the damaged structure. But Lena was studying the explosion pattern, her demolitions training from sniper school allowing her to read the destruction like a book. "No, they're creating firing positions, blowing out walls to give their people clean shots while keeping the structure intact enough to use for cover." It was tactically brilliant and deeply disturbing. Whoever was leading the Red Sabres understood military engineering at a level that suggested special forces background, possibly from multiple countries. They weren't just raiders or terrorists, they were professionals. From inside Building 7 came the sound of automatic weapons fire, followed by screams. Civilian screams. "More hostages," Lena said grimly. "They're not just holding the original group, they're collecting new ones as the operation expands." The tactical situation had evolved from a rescue mission to something approaching urban warfare. And from her ground-level position, Lena was about to enter the most dangerous phase of the engagement, room-to-room clearing against an unknown number of hostiles who had prepared positions and civilian shields. As she checked her ammunition and prepared to enter the building, her radio crackled with Ramirez's voice from the original hostage location. "All stations, be advised we have confirmed intelligence that the Red Sabres are using this operation as a demonstration. They're broadcasting everything to potential clients." The full scope of the situation crystallized in Lena's mind. This wasn't just an attack on Fort Carson, it was a marketing exercise. The Red Sabres were showing off their capabilities to potential clients, proving they could infiltrate and operate inside a major U.S. military installation, which meant they had every incentive to make this as dramatic and prolonged as possible. "Ellie, when we go through that door, we're not just trying to save hostages, we're trying to end a demonstration that could inspire attacks on bases around the world." Ellie's response was immediate. "Then let's make sure their demonstration fails." The interior of Building 7 was a maze of smoke, debris, and carefully positioned obstacles. As Lena moved through the ground floor, her rifle ready and Ellie close behind with medical supplies, she could hear voices above, multiple languages, professional communication patterns, and the occasional sharp command that indicated military discipline. "Second floor, northeast corner," she whispered to Ellie, tracking the source of the voices. "At least 4 hostiles, unknown number of civilians." They climbed the damaged stairwell carefully, each step calculated to avoid debris that might shift or make noise. At the second-floor landing, Lena could see light coming from a room at the end of the hallway. Not electric light, but the harsh illumination of portable floods, the kind used for filming. Her blood ran cold. Ramirez had been right about the broadcast, but the implications were worse than anyone had realized. The Red Sabres weren't just demonstrating their tactical capabilities, they were creating propaganda footage, possibly preparing for a very public execution that would be viewed by potential clients worldwide. As she moved down the hallway, staying close to the wall to avoid creaking floorboards, she could hear a voice speaking in accented English. "The target structure has been secured with minimal losses. Phase 2 objectives are complete ahead of schedule. Moving to final demonstration." Final demonstration. The words carried an ominous finality.
At the doorway to the lit room, Lena risked a quick visual reconnaissance. What she saw made her jaw clench with controlled rage. 12 civilians, base personnel who had been caught in the wrong place during the crisis, knelt in a line with their hands secured behind their backs. 3 Red Sabres operatives moved around them with professional efficiency, while a 4th managed what appeared to be broadcasting equipment. But it was the 5th figure that drew her attention and crystallized the full tactical challenge ahead. Standing at the far end of the room, partially concealed behind 2 of the kneeling hostages, was a man whose bearing and equipment marked him as the operation's leader. In his right hand, he held a device that Lena recognized immediately, a deadman switch connected to enough explosive material to level the entire floor. "This is Ghost 1, she whispered into her radio. "I have eyes on 12 additional hostages, 5 hostiles, and confirmed explosives with Deadman's trigger. Tactical situation is complex." Keen's voice came back immediately. "Options?" Lena studied the room layout, calculating angles, distances, and timing. The Red Sabres had positioned themselves with professional skill, overlapping fields of fire, multiple escape routes, and the leader positioned so that any shot attempt would risk civilian lives or detonation of the explosives. It was, she realized, the perfect sniper's challenge. 5 targets, all of whom had to be neutralized simultaneously to prevent either civilian casualties or explosive detonation. The kind of shot sequence that existed only in theoretical discussions and training scenarios designed to be impossible. "I need 60 seconds to set up," she told Keen, "and I need Hawthorne." "Hawthorne? Why?" "Because this requires multiple simultaneous shots from different positions. I can handle 3 of the 5 targets, but I need another marksman for the remaining 2, and despite everything that's happened today, he's still a competent shooter when the pressure's off." There was a pause before Hawthorne's voice came over the radio. "Ghost 1, this is Overwatch 3. I'm in position at Building 9, northeast corner. I have partial visual on your location. Can you see the 2 hostiles positioned near the eastern wall?" "Affirmative. Range approximately 180 meters. Clear backstop." Lena closed her eyes, visualizing the tactical geometry. If Hawthorne could handle the 2 eastern targets while she managed the 3 western ones, including the leader with the deadman switch, they could end this crisis in under 2 seconds. But the timing had to be perfect. The slightest delay, the smallest miss, and either civilians would die or the explosives would detonate. It was the kind of pressure that had broken Hawthorne earlier in the day. "Hawthorne, I know today hasn't been your best day, but right now I need the marksman I know you can be. Not the one who's been missing shots because he's overthinking, the one who earned his position through skill." The pause stretched long enough that Lena wondered if he was going to respond. Then, "Ghost 1, I've got your back. Call the shot." Lena moved to the doorway, her rifle finding its natural point of aim. Through her scope, she could see the leader clearly, his finger on the deadman switch, his position calculated to make any shot nearly impossible. Nearly. "Ellie, when this goes down, you're going to have wounded civilians who may panic. Be ready." "Ready." Lena's breathing settled into the rhythm that had carried her through thousands of training rounds and dozens of competitions. Her heart rate slowed, her vision narrowed, and the chaos of the day faded until there was only the rifle, the target, and the mathematics of precision. "All stations on my count. 5, 4, 3. At 2, the leader's fingers started to relax on the switch, a micro-movement that most people wouldn't notice, but which told Lena he was momentarily distracted. "Execute!" Her first shot took the leader's center mass, the impact spinning him away from the hostages, but not before her second shot, fired before the first had even reached its target, struck his wrist and sent the deadman switch flying harmlessly across the room. Her third shot dropped the operative near the broadcasting equipment. Simultaneously, Hawthorne's rifle cracked twice from his distant position, and the 2 eastern hostiles crumpled. 5 shots, 2 seconds, 5 targets neutralized. But as the gun smoke cleared and the hostages began to realize they were safe, Lena was already moving to check for additional threats. Because in her experience, operations this sophisticated always had one more surprise. She was right. From the floor below came the sound of boots on stairs, running, urgent, heading directly for their position. "Contact below," Ellie shouted. The final phase was about to begin. The approaching footsteps turned out to be Captain Keen and a full tactical team, arriving just in time to secure the final hostages and confirm what Lena already knew. The Red Sabres operation was completely neutralized.
But as the immediate crisis passed and medical teams began to attend to the wounded hostages,
Flooded the building to treat the freed civilians, Lena found herself experiencing an unexpected emotion. Peace. Not the exhausted relief that followed most crisis situations, but something deeper. For the first time in 3 years, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. The medic skills hadn't been wasted. She'd used them today to treat wounded under fire. But more than that, she'd reclaimed the identity that politics had tried to strip away.
Specialist Ortiz. Keen's voice carried a tone she hadn't heard from him since her reassignment 3 years earlier. Genuine respect. I owe you an apology, and more than that, I owe you a restoration of status that should never have been revoked. Around them, base personnel were working to secure the scene and evacuate casualties. But Lena noticed that several people had stopped their work to watch this conversation. Word was spreading about what she'd accomplished today, and she could see in their faces a mixture of amazement, respect, and curiosity about the medic who turned out to be one of the most skilled marksmen anyone had ever seen. "Sir," she replied carefully, "I appreciate the recognition, but I want to be clear about something. I didn't do this to get my status back. I did it because people needed help, and I had the skills to provide it." "I understand that," Keen said, "which is exactly why you're getting your sniper authorization restored immediately. Someone with your capabilities and your judgment needs to be in a position where they can use both." Hawthorne approached from across the room, his expression complex. The cocky confidence that had marked their earlier interactions was gone, replaced by something that looked like humility mixed with professional respect. "Ortiz," he said simply, then extended his hand. "I owe you an apology too. And my thanks. I couldn't have made those final shots without knowing you had everything else covered." She shook his hand, noting the firm grip and direct eye contact. "You came through when it mattered, Sergeant. That's what counts." "Still, I've been thinking about some things I said earlier, about medics not understanding real shooting. It turns out, some medics understand it better than most snipers." It was, Lena realized, probably the closest thing to a full apology she was going to get from Hawthorne. And honestly, it was enough. The man had overcome his personal issues to take the shots that mattered when lives depended on it. In her book, that counted for more than words. Ellie appeared at her side, medical bag in hand, but her expression glowing with excitement. "Lena, that was incredible. The way you calculated those angles, the timing, the precision." She paused, studying her mentor's face. "You're not just a medic who can shoot. You're a shooter who became a medic." "Something like that. But Ellie, what you did today was just as important. You spotted for me under fire, treated casualties in an active combat zone, and never lost your composure. That's the kind of performance that saves lives." Chief Warrant Officer Vaughn joined their group, his flight suit still smeared with cordite and dust from the day's operations. "Hell of a day, Ortiz. Hell of a day." He grinned, the expression transforming his usually serious face. "Though I have to ask, can we maybe limit the dramatic rescues to once a year? My heart can't take much more of this." The comment drew laughter from the group, the kind that release follows successful completion of a high-stress mission. But as the laughter faded, Lena found herself looking toward the windows where the late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across Fort Carson. "Captain," she said to Keen, "permission to ask a question?" "Granted." "The official after-action report, how much of today's events will be classified?" Keen considered the question carefully. "The Red Sabres' capabilities and methods will definitely be classified. The broadcast aspect, the client demonstration angle, that information could be sensitive from a national security standpoint." He paused. "But your performance today, the fact that a supposedly reassigned medic turned out to be one of the most skilled marksmen anyone had ever seen, one of the most capable marksmen in the Army, that story's going to spread whether it's official or not."
I'm not looking for publicity, sir. I just want to know if there are going to be political consequences for the people who supported me today. On the contrary, Keene replied, the people who supported you today are going to find their judgment validated. The people who didn't, he shrugged. Let's just say some career reassessments may be in order. As the conversation wound down and people began to disperse to handle the massive amount of paperwork and debriefing that would follow the day's events, Lena found herself walking toward the base's main rifle range. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, and the evening air carried the familiar sense of Colorado high country mixed with the lingering smell of gunpowder. At the 600-meter line, she stopped and looked downrange toward the targets that had been her refuge during 3 years of exile, the range where she'd maintained her skills on her own time, keeping alive the capabilities that had defined her identity long before politics intervened. Ellie caught up to her, slightly out of breath from hurrying across the base. "Lena, are you okay?"
"I'm perfect," Lena replied, and meant it. "For the first time in 3 years, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "So what happens now? Do you go back to being a sniper full-time?" Lena considered the question as she watched the sun sink lower toward the horizon. "I think," she said slowly, "that I'm going to be something new. A medic who can shoot. A sniper who can heal. Someone who can save lives in more ways than one." She reached into her cargo pocket and pulled out her rifle's scope, holding it up to catch the last rays of sunlight. Through the glass, she could see the distant targets clearly, each one precisely defined and perfectly in focus, just like her future. "Come on," she said to Ellie, shouldering her rifle case. "Let's go home." As they walked back toward the base proper, the evening air filled with the sound of helicopters bringing in investigation teams and the distant hum of activity that would continue long into the night. Behind them, the rifle range sat empty and quiet, waiting for tomorrow's training, tomorrow's challenges, and tomorrow's opportunities for precision under pressure. Fort Carson had survived its crisis. The Red Sabres were in custody. 47 hostages had gone home to their families. And specialist Lena Ortiz, no longer just a medic, no longer defined by others' limitations, walked toward her quarters with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had found her way back to herself. The scope in her pocket caught the last glimmer of sunset, reflecting light like a promise of clarity yet to come. In the distance, the mountains stood silent and eternal, bearing witness to another day when skill had triumphed over politics, when courage had overcome fear, and when someone had proven that redemption comes not from others' recognition, but from knowing exactly who you are when it matters most. Tomorrow there would be new challenges, new crises, new opportunities to serve. But tonight, Lena Ortiz was simply walking home, carrying her rifle and her scope and her hard-won peace, ready for whatever came next. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.